Today we're talking about Fallout 76. For those of you who are not aware, I am super excited for this game. It's coming out relatively soon now, and we have a lot more information that kind of dribbled in over the weeks, and I felt like it was time to just summarize it all. So this video will touch upon all the information we have about Fallout 76 so far, while not going too in-depth on the things that we know a lot about already, and rather focusing on the new information. Before we start, I'd like to hear from you guys in the comments if you are going to play Fallout 76 and if you're possibly even playing the beta. And the beta is also going to be our first topic here. The beta now has a release date, it's been announced, and the release date is different depending on the platform. For Xbox One, it's the 23rd of October, whereas for PC and PS4, it's the 30th of October. It's also not really a beta, it's more of a B.E.T.A, break it early test application. And this distinction is important because the actual beta is already ongoing. We already have people playing the beta right now actually testing the game for bugs, and what we are going to get is more of a stress test towards the end of the beta. As such, it will have certain limitations. The servers will not be up 24/7, only for certain testing timeframes to especially test the server load by having a lot of players on at the same time, and instead it will be up for 4 to 8 hours per day. It will also not be up until the release on November 14th. Pete Hines, also known as Uncle Pete, the SVP of Global Marketing and Comms at Bethesda, has been going over a lot of questions on Twitter. And in the context of that, he stated that the B.E.T.A will stop a few days before the launch. That means PS4 and PC player effectively get less than 2 weeks before the release if they pre-ordered the game. The only way to get into this stress test is by pre-ordering the game. So to sum it up, you have 4 to 8 hours per day for roughly maybe 10 days if you're playing PC or PS4 and you pre-ordered the game. During that time, there will be no NDA, so you can stream or record videos for the game already and release them as well. So that's an upside. The downside is obviously this staggered release schedule, especially for content creators. This is just really frustrating because the Xbox people just get it first, and I personally think that staggered releases should not be happening anymore in general, neither in one direction or the other. We have all the capabilities to have PC and console releases at the same time, but obviously there's a lot of money behind this, so I can understand why it's being done. And speaking of PC, the specs for PC are unfortunately not announced yet. What we know though, coming back to content creators a little bit as well, is that there will be more gameplay to be seen over the coming weeks. In the FAQ, Bethesda announced that as you wait for the B.E.T.A to begin, we will be showcasing much more of the game in the next few weeks, including tips for multiplayer, wasteland survival, character builds and customization, and more. Plus gameplay, lots and lots of gameplay. Keep an eye out on the Fallout website and social channels for news and updates about Fallout 76. Pete Hines said in this very context, and we're going to let a lot of people capture a few hours of gameplay doing whatever they want to do. So essentially, the game will be available even earlier for selected streamers, YouTubers, and press people that have big enough channels, I would assume. It sounds like at least a few hardcore Fallout content creators didn't get in, which I think is rather unfortunate. I guess the target here are once again more the bigger channels. But even if we can't play it ourselves, there's a lot more information for us as well. For example, there will be mods and private servers as well later down the road. They won't be there for the initial release, but they will follow, and that's what I know a lot of people have been asking for. These private servers will be hosted by Bethesda, and they're still trying to figure out how exactly the mods can be implemented, but that's things that will be decided down the road. We also have some more information on monetization, or pay to win rather. There will not be any pay-to-win aspects at all. The only thing that you can buy are cosmetics. And those cosmetics can also be farmed, but now we know a little bit better how exactly that will work. There will be a currency in-game, aside of your normal caps basically, that will be atoms, and these atoms can be used for cosmetics. These atoms can be bought for money as well though, if you just want to fast pass it. So from what it sounds like so far, the system works similar to, for example, League of Legends or Smite, where you have a currency that you buy and then you can decide which skins you can spend it on later or which modifications, and you can kind of split it up a little bit, only that in this case you can even farm a little bit through playing and then also get the rest through buying it, or farm the majority through playing and then spend a little bit, depending on how you like to do it. Due to the monetization system, there will also not be any paid DLC or season pass. Instead, every content that is released after the game itself is intended to be free. I think this is definitely a good call between a full-priced game and microtransactions being possible. We'll see if it holds up in the future. For now, there will not be any crossplay, despite crossplay now being made possible on Fortnite for the first time between PS4 and Xbox. The issue behind that is that at the time that Bethesda was wanting to do the crossplay with the PS4 and Xbox and PC, PS4, Sony basically said it's not going to happen, we're not going to allow it, and therefore the current code doesn't support it, so it may be something that comes back up in the future. We also have a lot of information about the PvP system, some older and some newer stuff. So the basic stuff is you only engage in PvP if you really want to. If an enemy shoots you, it only does reduced damage unless you start shooting back, in which case it becomes a full-on fight and you both take normal damage. If a player kills another player despite them not wanting to fight back, they become a murderer and they're marked for everyone on the map. They don't really get much of a reward for killing people at that point, or really just the junk that they drop. And as such, they really lose out when they do this. And the real reason to do it is just because you enjoy it and you enjoy the challenge maybe that comes afterwards. Judging from the trailers, it also seems rather hard to accidentally kill someone because they go on the ground when they're low HP and you basically have to decide to execute them at that point. All players are visible on the map at all times, but the murderer is marked in a different way, and the murderer also gives you more rewards for killing them, so there's an incentive to go after them. If you die, you only lose your junk, which is used for base building, but not your currency. There is no PvP before level 5, so you can't just match grief someone when they just come out of the vault. And there's also a PvP flag that reduces the damage you take from other players if you really don't want to go for PvP. Which also makes it apparently fairly easy to get out of situations if you don't want to fight by just, teleporting away via fast travel. Even if your entire server is hostile, there are only 24 players per map, so it's not like you're constantly going to run into enemies either way. Another part that is somewhat related to PvP is base building. Base building not only includes decorations, but also things like turrets to fend off any attackers. But the important part for PvP here is that you can get nuclear launch codes. These nuclear launch codes take a while to collect, but if you got a full one, for example, together with your team, then you can send out nuclear missiles to destroy areas and collect rare resources in those areas that then spawn. Obviously, if there are any enemies in that area that built their base there, that will be destroyed in the process of that. If your base is destroyed, it's not forever gone though. You keep the blueprint of that base automatically and can then rebuild it exactly the way it looked like before. Your base will also vanish when you log off, so no one can destroy it while you're not online. I'm not sure if there's a slight delay here, because otherwise I could imagine people just logging off before their base gets destroyed, but we'll find out about that. Outside of your installed bases, there are also public workshops that work a little bit like events, and you can claim them. They have lots of supplies around them, but also waves of enemies attacking them. So it seems to be worth to be there temporarily, get some resources, craft something, and then move on. And other teams can claim those workshops after you're done. Those are not the only events though. There are also mini events all across the map that pop up from time to time, like for example escorting quests with high rewards. Usually you play those as teams because they're relatively hard to do on your own, but sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you have to have a raid for it, basically. When being in such an event with other players from other teams, PvP or friendly fire is automatically turned off, so you don't accidentally end up killing your allies in that context. And if you have too many issues with the people on your server, that's not an issue either. Because you don't stick to one server, like one dedicated server that you choose at the beginning, but rather jump between servers with every session, kind of like in Sea of Thieves. As such, if you have an unpleasant experience, you just relog and end up on another server anyways. And now for some more smaller details you may not know yet that we'll go over before we go over the bigger picture things that most of you should be aware of if you've looked into Fallout at all. The map is, as most of you probably know, set in West Virginia and also uses their folklore. And the red user Chiu went over the entire map and marked everything that he could figure out, or she could figure out, was some sort of location in Fallout that has been mentioned in some context. And you can see a lot of it here, for example, the ski resort and stuff like that, which I think is really cool. And apparently there will be 4 bigger towns, as well as multiple different biomes with very different environments and enemies. And what we also know is that these areas have different levels. You can't just go across the map and go anywhere. They will have levels that are not locked, but rather level areas. So for example, there could be an area where there are enemies that are level 40 to 60, meaning if your level is 40 and you enter the area, then the enemies will be level 40. But if you enter the area at level 60, the enemies will be 60. If you're playing with others, then the first person to enter the area will set the level. So if your friend is level 60 and enters the area, the enemies will be level 60 regardless of your level until that person leaves the area. The challenges that you're facing in the game kind of change over time. In early game, you're mostly concerned with hunger and thirst, and you have to get your base resources up, but later when your base is already set and you have a few perks, you're more concerned with things like radiation or toxic air, especially in specific areas. If your power armor runs out of armor, you don't have to leave it where it is any longer. Instead, you can just pick it up and put it into your inventory now. And speaking of picking things up, there are things to facilitate that. The 7 specials that some of you may know from previous Fallout games are also in Fallout 76, being Strength, Perception, Endurance, Charisma, Intelligence, Agility, and Luck, but they are a bit different now. Within those specials, you now get specific perks, for example more melee damage or less weight for items, and that can also be ranked up. There are also perks that you can combine, for example increasing your luck while drunk and being able to revive others with alcohol and then get other benefits for reviving someone, and these perks are now in card packs. You get those card packs through leveling and they're random. They cannot be bought, but you will get one every other level until level 10 and then one every 5 levels. Some perks are obviously a little bit adjusted. Charisma is not about convincing NPCs anymore and is instead about team abilities. The V.E.T.A, the Vault-Tec assisted targeting system that many of you know and love, is also in the game, but it's in real time this time. That means it will still allow you to focus on specific body parts for more damage, but it will not allow you to slow down time while doing so. Initially, it apparently feels less impactful, though through different upgrades that can be changed. Fallout 76 will also come with a photo mode where you can adjust different things like the poses or face expressions, kind of like in the newest Tomb Raider, which kind of had a little bit of media attention with Lara Croft smiling in front of various disturbing things, so we might see the same thing happening with Fallout 76. The game can be played in solo or as a team, and apparently both is very viable right now and both can absolutely work, only that for certain things you will need a team. So far, companion animals have not been mentioned yet, no mention of dog meat, but there has been a dog food bowl, so people are speculating that we will find animals somehow, somewhere. And last but not least, if you don't know yet, the game has giant sloth, so I'll absolutely have to play it anyways. That's all we know so far, but there's a lot more coming over the next weeks, and as soon as something is coming out in terms of information, I will absolutely let you know here as well. So if you're new to the channel, feel free to click the subscribe button and maybe the bell. It really helps me out and it gives you the opportunity to find out about the next big information for Fallout 76, as well as obviously more guides and gameplay once the beta releases. And with that, thank you guys very much for watching. For those of you waiting for a Smite video, that will be coming tomorrow. See you for the next one, then DukeSloth out.